Now, as for this chassis, I'm going to be breaking this down as well. I definitely want to get in here and get rid of that corrosion. I may just end up replacing these tube sockets. We'll see. Because I noticed they have some of the green corrosion on the other side. I'm going to tear this all apart. I'll be able to get at these two caps, check all the coil continuity, clean up the range switch, check the wiring, and restuff that capacitor. Now, I think I mentioned earlier that this dial seems to be rubbing. Wasn't sure if it was the capacitor or the dial. It is the dial. The reproduction, I think, just needs to be, it's actually rubbing up here. I think it needs to just be trimmed down a little bit. I don't know who did this reproduction. I only recall buying one reproduction Philco dial, and that was back in 2006. And it came on very similar translucent amber type material, just like the originals were. Whereas this is opaque. It's actually just like color inkjet printing that was laminated or something like that. And I like the other types better, I gotta say, because I don't think light shines through these very well. Let's see if I can find my flashlight. Yeah, that really looks nothing like the originals. In fact, well, you can see that behind here is that the band switch part is the original type of Philco material, whereas this is not. It's basically just like shining a light through a piece of paper, a heavy piece of white paper. But you know, that's what's there. That's what I'll go with. But I think if one wanted to, one could find another type of reproduction that's closer to the original. I'm tackling the last major chassis component, which is the RF deck. I want to take this all apart so I can remove the corrosion. Not much on most of it. A little spot here and there and a side piece, but the top, it's really bad. I want to get all that out of there. So, seeing what I can do about taking this apart. Just kind of working my way around, taking out every screw that looks like it will do me some good to take it out. I'm going to do a minimal taking apart of this variable capacitor assembly. There are actually some notes in the service info with tips about taking this apart too. Right, so put that aside. That's the tuning capacitor and window thingy for the 3 bands. Start breaking this down. I wonder if I can take out all these electronics and just de-rust that. I'd have to clip all the wires to all the sockets, I'm sure, though. I'm not quite sure. It's holding it together right now. I think it might just be the screw. So I'd rather not submerge all those oscillator and antenna coils. This should come off now. Oh, I can certainly get at those caps easily now. Interesting. Those go to the tuning capacitor. So parts of the tuning capacitor are coupled through paper caps. Now I was considering replacing these sockets as well because they have that green corrosion. So if I was to drill out these two and leave the sockets behind, it looks like I gotta take out 2 more sheet metal screws, and I think this whole thing would come away from this. So what to do? Clip all the wires going to the sockets and then rewire them back in, or drill out the rivets. Very easy to drill out the soft brass with one of these titanium bits. I hate it when they start spinning though, like this one is. The other one was much more cooperative. Okay. Alright, let me get this guy. Almost. Gotta get this out. Let's disconnect that and then we can get this. So, you know, with some corrosion. Oh yeah, I mean there's definitely corrosion all around the sockets there. And then I can certainly have easy access to this to recap it. Be interesting to see how I wire in the new sockets and get them attached to these ground terminals, but we'll worry about that when we get to it. There we go. Now this can go into the evaporust. I don't know what this curious little thing was for. Oh yeah, that's where the rubber shock mount attaches. I didn't realize this this could move. The top of the RF chassis has had its corrosion removed. And check out how deeply pitted that is. Right around here, you can really feel there's a depression there. That's where the deepest corrosion was. Pretty deep over here too. And this whole area, it's probably about half the thickness of the metal or more is gone. Now this, because it is so bad, this I am going to slop on some primer and then use some metallic paint so it's not so obvious. This guy. And here's that tube base shield that was so nasty. I think that one in here. Looks kind of crummy, but it is basically rust free. Maybe I'll go over the wire brush and give it a little more dunking. There might still be some traces of corrosion on there. Which brings me to the next piece I want to derust, which is the tuning cap. And yeah, from my experience and everything I've read, it's okay to dunk this. The evaporust will not harm the aluminum plates. There's corrosion down there on the rivets. Not too bad. But while I've got my solution out, why not go for it? A little bit down there, and there's a bigger patch somewhere on this. Yeah, there. Something else I noticed is that I don't think this is assembled quite right. Let's check out the bend on this disc. This rotates with the band switch and it opens up one of those slots beneath that plastic rod there to illuminate the dial band. And that's at an odd angle. And it's really rubbing all over the place. So I think it might be mounted upside down. That's my best guess right now. As before I dunk this, I do want to remove that stuff. think I just got to take off these two screws and maybe a little bit of work down here, and it should pull apart. And let's see if we can get that assembled so it doesn't look quite so wrong. Now, it might also be that this got bent. Now, notice that the dial scale was rubbing too, and the way it was packed with just a bunch of plastic wrap around it, and then with that foam peanuts, it could have very well put pressure on this and bent it in. So I'm noticing that this looks pretty pushed in down here, like this should be pried out a little. Alright, now to begin work on this RF circuitry. So, got 1, 2, 3, 4 caps to replace. Simple enough, easy to get at now. And I want to replace these sockets. So they originally were attached to this, and I imagine they riveted into the sockets, and then they built their circuitry from this way up. Well, I'm going to endeavor to do the opposite, since this is already all together. Wire in the new sockets like this, and then bring this over and set it down, and attach those two sockets, and then just have to solder in a couple, maybe 3 grounding connections, and I think those are for the filaments. And one bit of nastiness I see on this, aside from just it being a bit dirty, is down, it's on the other side, down in here. Something nasty and corrosive got in there. I put a little navel jelly on it, but I'm really not able to get in there very well. And I don't really want to dunk this whole thing into evaporust, or even just that section if I can avoid it. But these things are all pop riveted on. The coils aren't, but the trimmers are. But it looks like this one can come apart. It's got a nut on the back. So I'm going to try to take this one apart, which should allow me to get in there pretty well and clean that crud off. I was having trouble submerging the switch assembly in evaporust. Partly because I don't have that much left, partly because I want to really just submerge this portion. It's the back of this that has the corrosion. Well, it's a large, ungainly thing, and the shaft was sticking out the front, so it was just difficult for me to position it right. And then it finally dawned on me that this comes apart quite easily. With the ganged tuning cap off and the sides removed, there's really nothing holding these back sections on. They just slid right off the switch shaft. The front section has those trimmer caps pop riveted to it, but by removing these two screws, I was able to pull the switch shaft off from the front, and now I'm down to just this little assembly. I can clip off the tube sockets and get that out of the way. Especially glad I'm doing this because I noticed there's actually more corrosion on the other side. I've had this soaking for a while, and most of the corrosion is gone from that spot. That's where it was really bad down in there. And now that it's all taken apart, I can really get in here and work on each section. So I'll replace that cap, replace that resistor, clean the switch contacts, check the coils. So we got 3 sections here. One will be for the local oscillator, one will be for the antenna, and one I believe is for a bandpass filter. Visually they all look to be in good shape. You can see each section has 3 switchable coils and 3 trimmer caps. And then there are some additional ones like this guy here. It's probably something like the for the high end of the broadcast band. Quite often there's an extra trimmer for that. They're certainly covered in the alignment instructions.